Hi everyone and welcome back to Chess for Charity. In this video, I'm going to show you a cool puzzle where it's white to play and win. It's a little harder than you think, so try your best to calculate out as far as you can. I'll give you a second to think about it. While you do, let me ask you to subscribe if you have not yet already. Half of the income I earn in this channel goes directly to charity, so every like, every subscriber helps us out so much. Alright, so we have a couple of basic ideas here. And I think most people look at this puzzle and say, why can't I just run this pawn up the board? Play h4, h5, h6, h7, get a queen. I like the idea, but unfortunately it doesn't work. Now why is that? If you play h4, remember, the question is always, can the king get in the box? And if the answer is yes, like this, then it can be caught. So just to show that, this pawn would get caught, because every time you make this box, as you get smaller and smaller, the king keeps getting in the box, right? Like this. And eventually that box becomes one square, right? You're essentially making that box smaller and smaller. And now from here, white is just losing, right? You can try to run and catch this pawn, but unfortunately you're just not fast enough. Just to show a quick variation, you just run in, but it's not enough, right? You'd love to play here, but unfortunately you can't. Hopefully you see the point there. So h4 looks promising, but this king and pawn endgame is lost. Okay, so if it's not h4, what other moves do you have? You have h3, you have king to all of these squares. Maybe one of those is an option. So we looked at h4, we can look at h3 in a second. What if I wait with the king? What if I play like king d2? And saying, hey, if you move this pawn, I can get back in the box, right? Try to visualize that. Sure, that is a good idea, and it's true that you'd be able to catch this pawn, but unfortunately that would let the king in. So showing this variation, it's kind of complicated, but see how far you can calculate. King comes in, black king comes in, you take this, and maybe as they take, you try to run, but it's not really that difficult, right? Can this pawn be caught by this king? What do you think? Look at the box. The answer is yes. Right? Do you see that? So maybe a better try would be, instead of capturing this pawn, when black plays here, you then play h4. Maybe try that instead. Well, it's actually kind of leading to the same thing. They can either take this or queen to take you away. Either way, it's the same idea. Now, can this pawn be caught? No, it cannot, because this king cannot get to one of these squares in one move. Okay, so that means you're going to queen, right? Yes. So if you want, let's draw the king away, and then let's move this king in. And even though both sides queen, this is a win for black. So what do you do here? The computer is suggesting queen e3 and just push this pawn. Like, it's not easy against a supercomputer. I'm sure I'd mess it up. But against two people of equal strengths, it's not too difficult. Just watch out for the checks, keep moving, and eventually push that pawn when you have a chance. Okay, so we just looked at going that way with the king. What if you go king b2? Is that the right idea? Well, unfortunately, no. It's kind of the same exact concept. So they come to take here, you rush this thing up the board, great try, but they take, and it's going to be pretty much the same idea. They do this, king d3 works, this pawn's going up the board, and even though this pawn moves, it's very similar to what I just showed. Sure, it's not with check, because you can't check that way, but this queen is holding everything together, and this pawn is going to keep pushing. The computer is saying queen d8, just to show a computer line. Queen e2, looking to trade queen soon. You have to do something to get away from it. This is the computer variation. Playing here to prevent this. Just to show a couple more moves. Queen b4 is cool. Sure, you can check me. I just walk around. King f2. Right, it's not too crazy, but it is interesting. Okay, so that move doesn't work. That move doesn't work. The same idea would apply to backing up, right? None of those are going to be ideal. If you back up, you're letting the king pretty much in for free. So I'll take that, no problem. Same concept as before. Which means the only move that wins is this pawn. The move is h3. Let's put a little brilliant move on there. Who would have guessed that? Right? If you're playing this in the game, do you even think about the move h3? Let me know if you would even see that move, or if you would just play h4 and hope that you can catch it. So why is h3 winning? Well, it turns out it's kind of like a zugzwang situation for black. So what can they do? They can go this way to chase the pawn. They can back up. They can go away. Let's look at all the options. Let's say they try to just stay on this kind of blocking path of b4. They want to block the king from coming in, right? Making this little barrier. Well, now they're a little bit too far away from this box. What does that mean? That means the king can't get to, not that square, that square. So white would win, right? It's just too slow now. And I hope you can see that. After all, I drew the box. Okay, like that. And now white is clearly winning. And if ever you throw some moves in here, I'll just meet that by getting the pawn. Okay, so the king can't just stay here. What if the king goes back? Just backs up calmly. Well, now you go forward, kind of creating a barrier here. And it's the same situation. You're forcing them back. If they move this pawn, you just take that pawn, right? a3, king b3. And if eventually it goes down to where this king gets this pawn and this king gets this pawn, your king is a little bit closer to the action. Isn't this all fascinating? That one move of h3. So what else is there to try? Well, maybe you start going back, saying, okay, I see this. I'm going to catch this pawn. Maybe it's a mouse slip, maybe you're thinking that. Maybe my opponent meant to play h4, but they played h3. Well, if you go king d5, what do? King c3, stepping up. Do you really want to go around? It seems like a long journey to get this pawn. Well, if that happens, just to show the line, king b4, you need to get this pawn before you take these ones out. Just to show the example. All right, you can't take here or here, so you have to go around. Kind of a long path. Just showing the whole concept. King c5, king c4 both work. Take this pawn. Now where do you go? Take this pawn. King g2. Which pawn do you take, by the way? One pawn wins the game. One pawn draws the game. Shouldn't be too hard. If you take e4, you're giving up control of these squares. So now they would do this, and you're kind of in zugzwang. So if you were to do something like this, this is just a draw, right? So instead, you would take this pawn. And then they make a move, and it turns out this is just one of those mutual zugzwang situations. But they have to back up, and then you take it, and then you get out of the way, and you push this pawn home. Isn't this amazing? All of this comes from this idea of h3 and not h4. I find that to be so instructive. I don't know about you, but when I saw this puzzle, I was like, isn't it obviously h4? And then I started thinking, and I was like, oh, okay, the king can catch it. So maybe it's something else. And I thought, well, if I sit here, it doesn't seem like I'm doing anything because I'm giving up something in either case. And then I was like, maybe the right move is the move that looks crazy. And of course, how puzzles sometimes go, h3 is that move. So let me know, did you find it? If you did, great job. Would you have found it in a game though? Right? Many of you have commented like, oh, this is easy because it's a puzzle. You know to look for it. Would you have found it if it was a regular game? That is the question. That's a question mark. Well, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.